here. So welcome and good turnout this week. Glad we still got people coming in. Amazing. Uh yeah, this was The Strange Death of Alex Raymond. And there's an interesting story that I'm sure we're going to get into here. And we're very, very happy that joining us today is Mr. Carson Grubeau. Hello, Mr. Grubeau. Carson, welcome. You're muted. You are muted. Yeah.
Yeah,
There
sorry.
you go.
Sorry. I'm used to being in charge of the Zoom meetings.
Well, we're glad you're here. Welcome. I'm glad you agreed to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting that there's people reading the book and then getting together to talk about it. That's cool. That's I think what we all would hope for.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well,
Yes, odds niggas, yeah.
yeah. I don't know about that.
So what are you going to do next, David? Are you going to go on and continue on with this particular book?
We'll talk about that. So let's get into it.
So, Carson, why Aardvark?
Why an aardvark? That would be
Why did
Dave.
that guy do the Aardvark?
Why
Oh.
did Dave?
Yeah,
I
Stephen doesn't
don't
know
know.
the history.
Yeah, I can't really answer that.
What do you call it? The Cerebus the Aardvark.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know. That would be a question for Dave, honestly. I
I'm just a bit curious there because the Melbourne Science Fiction Club, the name of their fanzine was Ethel the Aardvark, which seems to have preceded Cerebus the Aardvark.
It could be. I mean, Dave is definitely he seems to be parody seems to be his main mode, so he'll pick and steal from pretty much anything he sees and then run it through the parody blender. I don't know if he was parodying that specific thing or not. I don't really have any context for what he was doing there, so sorry.
As I recall, I think it was a mascot that he created back in the 70s in his company. It was just like a mascot figure, and then he made it the main character of the book. But I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he was just doing the funny animals thing.
Yeah.
I think that's all it was. I'm not sure though.
Yeah.
I think he's
yeah,
written
which was
on that
more of
pretty
a
extensively.
factor back in the 70s. Yeah. Pogo and stuff like that. Well, now the thing about your involvement with the book, Carson, is of course you're not writing the script. Now, my understanding is your contribution is you are the artist on the Jack the Manager segments.
In volume 1, yeah, which is I'm assuming all that you have read.
Right.
In volume 2, I take over the main part of the story after where Dave can no longer draw, and then in like the end that's coming forward, when we're going to collect the whole book together, then I'll be writing and laying out the end because Dave walked away, so I'm wrapping it up. But in what you've read, yeah, just those sequences, the interstitials.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the specifics of the reproduction, the recreation of the classic comic strip panels. Is that you or was that Dave Sim?
Yeah, in volume 1, that would be Dave.
Okay.
In and for half of volume 2, and then I take over that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So in any of the like where she opens the book and she's actually like reading Strange Death of Alex Raymond. Those were the issues that Dave made as single issues for IDW. And then when he decided to put it into a graphic novel, he said, well, you know, it's kind of weird to have these issues. And you've seen it, you know, like the story actually runs through the credits and stuff. And so instead of redrawing that, he thought it would make more sense to have this other story buffering it, I guess. And so that's something that needed to be done after his hand was hurt.
I think it works a little. I'm kind of interested in getting some reactions from people who had read it. To the extent that we can talk about the art, because I'll just pull it up here so we can take a look at it. Yeah, I mean, you know, well, we can talk a little about my ideas. I think I've always said I think good drawing is it's like music to me. It's as aesthetically pleasing as listening to good music. Well done drawing, and this is certainly well done drawing. Certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, like for example, how much of this is specifically photo referenced?
All of it.
Oh, okay.
100%.
All right. It still strikes me because it's still very striking because, of course, you know, I don't have any artistic ability at all. I certainly could never do anything like this, even from a photo. Give me 100 years, I couldn't do this. So it's incredibly.
Yeah, I mean, it is a quote unquote history of photorealism in comics. So I mean, that is baked into the style. I mean, guys like Raymond were doing some of that without reference, which is pretty mind-boggling. But you know, it's purposely heavily photo referenced.
Yeah. There's a lot here. I certainly am. And then Dave takes over. You know, so I thought that this gets to be a little bit like people think, it might be a little bit too esoteric. It's so specifically talking about a very specific part of cartooning and art that not a lot of people have background in or know much about. I found this fascinating. I just found it incredibly compelling just to read about this, and I found the progression of his presentation to be very, very engaging, certainly. And it's a joy and a delight to just look at this lush, gorgeous artwork. It's certainly a tradition of cartooning that is very, 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 very rare today, I think. But it used to be, you saw it all the time back in newspaper comics of the 50s, 60s into the 70s. And I do admire anybody who puts in the time to that. Have you always worked, Carson, in this kind of photorealistic style? I went through your website a little bit. Yeah. Yeah, so are we connected?
Sorry, my audio went out there for a second.
Okay.
I don't know why my earbuds. Was there a question? Sorry, I was.
Yeah, no, no. I went through your website a little bit, and I saw some of your background of what you posted. Have you always worked in photorealism?
That's my natural inclination. Yeah, ever since I was a kid. Um, there, I think in the if you got the You Don't Know Jack book that we did as well, and the digital downloads that came with that had an example of some art I did when I was a kid, where probably like in high school, and it pretty much looks like this. And so it was kind of funny to go back and look at, like, before I ever saw what Dave was doing on Glamour Post, I was already kind of drawing like this. So this is fairly close to my natural style, but altered a little bit to mesh with what Dave was doing.
I see.
And
are you a cartoonist, Carson?
I'm sorry?
Are you a cartoonist? Do you work on photorealistic styles?
I switch around a lot. The thing that interests me most about art is I think it's kind of like Dave too. He's very interested in being a mockingbird.
Yeah.
Mimicking other people's styles. So I'll do stuff that looks like Chris Ware. I'll do stuff that looks like this. This is more natural for me than cartooning.
Okay.
Like, I have to reverse engineer to cartoon. I have to do this and then start stripping out detail. Whereas like a lot of my students, their tendency is to cartoon, and I have to get them to add detail in, so it's...
Okay.
Do you do cartooning?
Yeah. Last week we did a book by Peter Bagg.
Yeah, he's like the opposite, but I've aped his style before too. It's just what works. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Natalia, you said you weren't a fan of that style. Well, how about this, Natalia?
Yeah, this is okay. I quite like this, actually, the photorealistic stuff.
What's your bag?
Sorry?
What like if you what's your thing? Who would you say is like the top of the peak?
You mean the three schools of like
who's your favorite artist, cartoonist? Who influences you?
I mean, I'm actually more familiar with like anime styles. So this kind of realistic style is still quite novel.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Manga? What manga artists?
Oh, I can't remember. I haven't actually read manga for quite a while. I've been watching a bit of anime here and there.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, before we go on, I just wanted to point something out here. Even if these are all photo referenced, it doesn't come across it. It does come across because you've seen other artists who do photo, reference, and it doesn't look fluid. It doesn't look animated. It doesn't look. It looks kind of stiff and
still
lifeless,
static.
But that's not the case at all with your panels here.
Thank you.
At all with your figures. Yeah, I mean, there's energy and there's personality and there's animation, in your figures, and and here's an interesting point that I find is there's weight. There's weight. I mean, in a way that you don't see very much, like. And this was I was thinking about this. Do you know, like, someone like along the lines of like traditional Marvel, DC artists, like even some that are considered like the best. Like a good example that comes to my mind would be George Perez.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a George Perez page, you see, he has rendered the figures very well. But I don't know about you, but I never get the sense that there's weight. You know what I mean? They all seem to be like floating, kind of. Even when the characters are standing.
Yeah.
They're kind of like just there. You don't get the feeling of, they're kind of like in zero gravity. You don't get
Yeah.
that feeling of weight.
I think he's a good example of that too. He's like, I was trying to think, you know, who would be a center in that way, and yeah, he's as soon as you
Yeah.
said it, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, because he's very like about line, so much
Yeah.
about line outline. Something like this is, it's almost more about shape. I know there's a lot of line in it, but it's about seeing the shapes and how the shapes interlock, and then when it's a line, it's just, well, that's just a very thin shape, unless you're doing the cross hatching, then it's line. But on the figures, I think it's more about an awareness of area, you know, like it's something I tell my students all the time is the outline is just marking where the thing ends, and we're trying to draw where the thing is. So the isness of the object is all the surface shapes, and any of the lines on the end are you know, that's just thin shapes to catch the edges. So maybe that's it. I don't know, but I appreciate that. I think part of it too is we just got lucky with Jack. She's a good model. You know, so I think some of those, you get a model that has a stiff pose and you're going to get a stiff image. So I've just been lucky because I do work so photorealistically. I've learned ways of capturing models in a natural pose. Instead of posing them, I'll just suggest like act out this thing, and I'll try and get them captured in motion. I think with superheroes, especially if you do photo reference, you can't have someone fly, so you get a lot of, okay, now hold it and like balance on a chair and then take a picture of it.
Right.
So you get really bad art that way. So I think that's a large part too to Jack. Elena, how long does it take to draw one panel? It depends on how much cross hatching there is. Hour or two maybe. If it's like one of those with all the cross hatching, then I could spend all day cross hatching. But just, I don't know. It's a little different too, because when I was doing this, I was drawing everything pretty much twice. Now I just ink. I don't do any penciling. I just like, you know, trace off the image on computer, print it out, you know, real simple tracing, and then go straight to ink. So it goes twice as fast. On this, I would like ink it once, and then scan it, print it back out in blue line, and ink it again, which was just insecurity. It was like I was the first time like doing comics in a long time, and I was working with Dave Sim all of a sudden, which is like, you know, in my mind, God tier creator, and so I had to get it right, and that actually led to stiffer art. So I'm glad you still think it's fluid.
Yeah. I just want to point out that the you know, just here where she's sitting on the stool specifically. I mean, yeah, you just get the impression of the weight of her body on there. It just feels there's substance there.
Well, and I think George Perez, I'd have to look up, but he's such like an outline guy, right?
Yeah, like colored outlines. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's because he's so dense. I mean, you get guys like Jeff Darrow, who's all colored outlines too, but his stuff has weight. Like he's so, yeah. Well, I mean, George Perez.
I feel it. It's an endemic in the tradition over there in the Marvel DC area, like for like someone like Mike Grell. No.
Yeah. Well, and okay, I'm looking at George Perez now. Yeah, I mean, he's drawn so many damn people. You just don't ever see their feet on the ground, anyways. They are all like flying off the ground to be dynamic. So.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they just, you get the impression that they're all kind of hovering in the air.
Yeah. They are. And it's just, I never liked his stuff. I mean, I always thought, wow, it's impressive how much he's packing in there, but no. I'm a little too young for that. I was like, came up in the, you know, Jim Lee was like the dude.
Oh yeah.
I was a 90s guy. So
Carson, Alina's asking few questions. So how long does it actually take to draw one panel? Because it looks really time-consuming.
Oh, I
And
answered that already.
what did you? And I
Yeah,
think she
and
asked, when
I
did you
see a
start
second
drawing?
one. Yeah, sorry.
What inspired you?
I probably always have drawn. I just don't think I ever quit.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, like I have documents that, like, before I could write, I would tell my mom a story and she would write it down and then I would draw a little illustration. That's how she would keep me busy. So I
Okay.
always did that. I got into comics. It was because of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We didn't have a TV and I couldn't watch the TV show, so I would go to the thrift store, or not the thrift store, but the like grocery store, and get the comics of the TV. So that was like when I was 7 maybe. And that's when I told my parents I'm going to be a comic artist when I grow up. So since I was 7, it was like an explicit goal. But I've always been
I
drawing.
started when I was like 5, but I wanted to be more like a concept artist rather than like a comic illustrator.
And you've always been doing it. Never quit.
Yeah, and I'm studying animation, and I'm sort of like still deciding whether I should stick to that or just become a concept artist instead. So
Where are you going?
because I really enjoy drawing.
Where are you going to school?
Oh, RMIT. It's in Melbourne, university.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. For animation, try and get into one of the if you can get into one of the, instead of a university, get into like an art specific school would be the best. One of those places that pump people into the industry.
Yeah.
University is going to teach you to be a fine artist.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah. I mean, there's a major of it, but I'd rather not take fine arts in university.
Yeah, don't do that. That's the route I went.
Did you? How did you move up from that?
Well, your only option's teaching, which I intended to do.
Teaching?
Yeah, that's what I do for a living. This is just a fun side project. Yeah, and hopefully that answered the question about what inspired me. It was the Ninja Turtles, and then Jim Lee's X-Men run. Those were the two things that like I was like, dude, I'm gonna draw comic books when I grow up. And then at some point I went to school and college and started being a painter instead, and became a fine artist and then a professor. But like working with Dave let me wrap back around to that original dream of being a comic artist.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just follow your path wherever weird way it leads you.
Yeah.
Surprise yourself.
Yeah, takes a lot of dedication, especially to get good results.
Yeah. A lot of macaroni. Like, it's sacrifice, that's got to be the thing that matters above all else for a long time at least.
Yeah.
And some lucky people figure out how to do it without sacrifice, but that's what I've found is that has to be, that's your spouse for a while at least.
So do you teach like little kids fine arts, or like what sort of audience do you?
I teach at community colleges.
Oh, okay. For how long?
Since 2013.
Okay.
So college age. I did a year at a university and then have been at the community colleges since then. So yeah, probably about your age.
About my age. Yeah.
I don't know. The college student age. Yeah. I couldn't do little kids. They can't, they don't understand big words.
And they gotta explain in simple words.
Yeah, I need smart people to work
I'd
with.
love to teach them like digital art, but I'd rather just, none of them would probably have the budget to buy something like that.
The little kids?
And paper anyway. Yeah. I used to crayons a lot, and then I moved to like color pencils, and yeah. I've been sticking with
it's all the same. Digital's just another tool. I don't
Yeah.
think there's, from a teaching standpoint, I don't see a significant difference between teaching someone to draw in Photoshop or
or Clip Studio Paint or any other software.
Yeah, or on paper. Like it's that's all procedures. Like different procedures for different tools. But if you understand principles, then it doesn't matter. You can look up a procedure on the internet. Like I really hate teaching like Adobe Photoshop and stuff like that. I mean, I do for graphic design, but I don't like teaching the program because they could just look it up on YouTube.
It takes ages and complicated.
Yeah. So principles over procedures always.
Oh, you're familiar with Photoshop, you say?
Oh yeah, I use it extensively.
I think David had a question from about a few weeks ago on, what is it again, David? I couldn't actually manage to fix it.
Oh, you mean the Photoshop?
Yeah, you could ask Carson about it because I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, I don't have Photoshop on this hard drive I'm on right now.
Probably you can show him your work and ask for an advice. See what.
Yeah, no, it's
Maybe.
a blending issue. I can't figure out. I still can't figure it out.
I don't do much painting in Photoshop. Just drawing.
What about like image manipulating and like
A little bit. Like I'm not a photographer with Photoshop. I draw in color in Photoshop. But I know some image. Like Strange Death of Alex Raymond on my end is a Photoshop project. Dave is crazy. He cuts it all and photocopies it, and like those panels where it's like the panels at an angle in there, he'll have panels like the recreated panels that are flat on and then some that are an angle. He'll actually get his camera out and photograph it at an angle that he wants it at, and then he'll print that out and photocopy it and cut it and paste it on the page and then fax me that and like, okay, this is how I want you to draw it. Then I'll just get the thing and manipulate it in Photoshop because that's a lot easier. So it's a layout tool for me too, like because it's for collage, you can cut and paste. That's how I use Photoshop a lot.
And masking, masking is really useful.
Yeah, I'm not good at that at all. Like,
still learning as well.
Yeah, I'm not good. That's like a photographer trick. I'm very, very cut and paste. I mean, I could show you guys if people are interested. I don't know what y'all intention or David's. I don't want to hijack David's meeting. I don't know.
No, he's okay with it, I guess.
No, it's fine. I mean, as long as the conversation is good, I'm okay with it. Yeah.
I mean, I could show you like how Photoshop is being used for the book.
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, that would be useful.
I mean, I can have you share the screen or.
Yeah, I can pull up like what I'm working on or what I've been working on.
Yeah, sure.
I'll give you a preview, or I can show you like what Dave sends me. I can kind of show you the process because Photoshop is on my end is heavily involved. On Dave's end, he won't. There's no way he's not touching it.
Mm-hmm.
I think
you'll just have to activate me for the share. There we go. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this is my Strange Death of Alex Raymond folder. Yeah, here you can see Jack. So you see she was a good model. I mean, it's so easy to work with that. Like when someone's posing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's her shop there. And I had a student also. She was a student, and then I had a student who was taking photographs. So when I don't have to take photographs, it's easier because then I can be like the director.
He has the exact same shirt.
Yeah. So I had her dressed the way I wanted. So this is a good example of like this is volume 3 stuff. Like before Dave quit working. So preview. This is like what I'll get from Dave. I get a fax of photographs mocked up. let me see if I can find one with the comic panels all tilted in it. Well, so he'll send me, yeah, see, he'll take a photograph of the thing, like at the angle he wants, and then he'll cut and paste that in there. So these are like the materials. Here's one where he's photographing an old crazy cat panel at an angle. So he does all that manually.
Wow.
What I do then is I'll get into Photoshop and I'll put it all together. I'll put it together digitally, like with his layouts, and trace it off. And then when I'm working on my own pages, like now that Dave has supposedly quit working on it, I've been doing my own ending to it. And so let me see what would be a good page. 38. So I've been mocking up my own pages, and I'm doing that all in Photoshop, and then tracing it off.
Oh, that's a lot of layers.
How about that?
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
a lot of layers.
Yeah,
I
it's
got
amazing.
rid of all my photo reference and stuff already, but I'm finding like the materials I need. So
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it is gorgeous.
Vivian Leigh from Gone with the
Warp
Wind.
that image, the comic panels, so it looks like really tilted or something.
Yeah, so I can just pull them in and edit them each individually, and then just use the skew tool to get them to go the way I want. Dave would actually lay them down and photograph them at that angle. But I'm able to just get all these resources that I want together. And then, for me, it's just digital collage. So yeah, pretty much everything's on its own layer, and I can move it around, all the lettering. So this is like my ending to the book that I've been working on. But I do keep everything, pretty separate, so I can go in and trace things.
How about that?
Yeah. So that's how I've been working on the book. And then this will get printed out in a blue line. So that would look like, it would get printed out like that, because that's a color that when I scan it back in, we can just drop it right out. In Photoshop, I can just drop out the cyan, and then the inks will be just the black and white. And I can send that to Sean, and he can very easily deal with that. So it wouldn't have the lettering over it. But yeah, that's my process, is I'll print out these blue lines. So you'll see like none of the black or anything is put in there. If it's someone else's art that I got to recreate, then yeah, I'm going to have the whole thing. But in volume 1, what you're looking at, I don't think I have that on my computer anymore. In volume 1, I basically drew everything in ink twice. I drew it once with like a pen, which was like penciling, and then I printed it out and re-inked it. Starting with volume 2, maybe we can see. No, this doesn't have the blue line in it anymore. I don't think you can see it. The Siren Volume 2, I just had the blue line, and then I just inked all the details. Like, there's a good one. So pretty much making it all up on the fly at that point. So that's a lot of how I use Photoshop for this. Is that collage?
It looks amazing already.
Yeah.
Previews.
Wow. Yeah. I just dabble around with Photoshop for a hobby, but I'm nowhere near any kind of expert. That's great.
Thank you, Elena.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not an expert either. I just self-taught. I mean, so. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you think like that kind of a photorealistic approach has a place in in our artistic landscape these days? Or is it a dying tradition?
I think, well, yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't. I can't
Yeah.
imagine any argument why it wouldn't have a place. I don't think it's the
Mm.
preference. I talked to Dave about this, and I said, like, I forget how I put it. But when I see photorealism, it's applied to like comic stuff. So guys like Greg Land,
Mhm.
people who are these kind of photo referencers. And yeah, it usually leads to stiff feeling work because it's intended to be so dynamic. If you get someone like J.H. Williams III who can do it out of his head, then you get nice dynamic artwork. But if you have someone like Greg Land, it's too stiff. And so I think that's killed it a little bit.
Mhm.
It worked better for something like Rip Kirby or Mary Perkins on Stage, any of these old comic strips that we're talking about,
Yeah.
because it's more day-to-day life. But then there is that thing like Scott McCloud talks about, if you have photorealist stuff, it's harder to sympathize with the character. Like if it's a cartoon, it's easier to put yourself in the cartoon shoes. Like the more abstract it becomes, the more easily you're associated. So a lot of these autobiographical or like Fantagraphics type of serious works tend to veer towards the cartooning because I think they're trying to emphasize the emotional aspects of it.
There's more closure, I guess. That's how you put
Yeah,
it.
you're just able to be in it more instead of like, checking out the art. You're able to be in the flow of the story. So I think there's good reasons that it's disappeared. I think, I think what we're doing, it works like this essay type of format, it's not a story so much as almost like an academic essay, just with no like sources cited. Because then you're reporting on like this is what this person actually looked like. So it works better in that context, maybe. But I would like to tell a story in that mode, just to see, can you do a serious drama, something that you would get from like a Fantagraphics in that mode and have it work, or does it need to be cartoon? I don't know. In Japan they get away with it's not all cartoony stuff. I've seen some extremely realistic work.
Yeah, they're realistic and very. Their styles changed like gradually, yeah, in the 80s and 90s, it'll be more like realistic, and these days it's like really. There's a Japanese term for it. It's called moe. It's like they really exaggerate the eyes, especially, and the facial features, making it look really cutesy.
Yeah, I'll show you.
Kind of style, but yeah.
This is a book you all might want to read. I don't know how you get it because there's no English. You'd have to steal it online. But this is like my favorite comic I've ever read is The Climber by Sakamoto Shinichi. And it is absurdly good realistic art. And it is one of the best dramatic books I've ever read as well. So I do think it's possible. There's a place where, he has stylization as well. There's definitely
wow.
There's definitely
that's really good.
Yeah, there's some big eyes and stuff, but he's
but it's still proportional, right? The body shape and everything.
Yeah, he's just so good. And he that's one of the most emotionally impactful books I've ever read. It's not showing nice big images. He also has a book called Innocent that's a little more stylized that just ended. But just gorgeous black and white artwork.
Yeah, really detailed.
And now he's working on he just started like last month working on a Dracula book.
Mm.
So I do think, yeah, I definitely think there's a place for it, and he's figured out how to be realistic,
Mm.
stylized enough that it's like exciting too.
Mm. There's a bit of a cross hatching there, but not a lot on the nose. Mm.
Yeah, I don't see any
Whoa.
Dracula stuff. But anyways, I don't know. I do think
Wow.
there's a.
Try looking up Junji Ito. He's
Oh
also,
yeah, I know Junji Ito.
you know
stuff,
Junji
yeah.
Ito, right? Yeah, I really
I
like
just
his
bought one of his
stuff.
books the other day. Yeah.
What did you? Which one is it?
Gyo, I think. Gyo, GYO. Is that one of his?
Wow.
Yeah, GYO. Gyo.
Gyo.
Gyo. I tried to read what's his famous one? Well, I know they're all famous, but the Tomi, I didn't like that. I thought it was too
Tomie.
gross.
Is that
Yeah, Tomie. I thought he was just
Yeah.
being gross just to be gross.
yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like this weird, perverse mix of like sex
It
and
is.
violence that
I
didn't
know.
interest me.
I like
But
the
I do
story
like his
where
art.
with the caterpillar head. You know, that one's really.
Yeah, I didn't get very far into it, but I do like his art, so I read more of it. But yeah, I think like, I mean, do you have a sense, David, that there's not a place for?
Well, there's a point in the book where he's talking about the natural evolution, and it's getting more towards cartoony. Like, for example, now you pick up a Marvel, a DC, or an Image comic. Yeah, it's still I forget the three that he identified, but it's closer now to more of a abstract
Like the Milk and Nick,
figure.
yeah.
Rendering, with more representational,
I mean, to me, when I look around the landscape, I see everything out there. I see
Okay.
people, I still think most of the Marvel and DC stuff is coming off the stylized realism, the heroic realism of the Flash Gordon stuff. I think you get like the Boom Studios and all those people who are doing more cartoony stuff. You get a lot of people that are like bringing out the Mike Mignola type of influence.
Oh, Mike Mignola.
There's another.
Yeah,
There's
I like
a really.
Mike Mignola.
Yeah, he's good. There's another really good dude. I don't know his name. He's like Ukrainian or something, and he's mixing like Mike Mignola with Sergio Topi, which is just mind-boggling. What was that book? I don't know. I don't buy it. I think there's people working in like a bajillion different styles. I think we're in a nice point right now where there is no dominant. Like even an Image, there's a huge variety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I'm all for diversity, certainly.
Like I got to figure out this one guy's name. What was that book called? I don't know. I'm not going to remember it, but I think there's a place for the realism in that. I think it just has to be. People are always impressed by it, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but how do you get past that being impressive and get to the story? I think is the problem.
Mm.
And not be stiff, like you said. A lot of it's too stiff.
Do you know Tim Truman?
Yeah. His stuff's pretty stiff, I think, as well.
Really? Have you ever seen Wilderness?
I think of him more as a painter. Oh, he's more like the Brian Boland.
Oh yeah.
Kind of like that. That's what Dave would call the Hal Foster. I think Hal Foster line. Brian Boland, Tim Truman.
I don't have a good. This is very pixely, but if you ever look at Wilderness, you got it right here. Tim Truman, Wilderness.
Yeah.
It's a little example.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about his work never did it for me. It looks like and if it does it for you, fine. I don't mean to crap on something you like, but it always looks to me like when I was a kid, you'd get these things that were like the illustrated Bible or something.
Yeah.
And it is like, to me, it's like journeyman work. I don't know, I feel like I'm being a real prick right now, but it's like really good, but it's like stiff. It's better in black and white. I hate that kind of stuff when it gets colored, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just something about it that's like,
Yeah.
Black and white maintains that, fluidity of the story, I guess, rather than like colored, if you know what I mean.
it's too feathery. Maybe that's what it is. Or his the way he handles line weight or something. But like also, like you just get to a certain point if you really push yourself, that if something gets close to what you're doing, you're more picky about it. So someone who does realistic art, I'm going to be extra picky. Someone who does cartooning, I'm just going to be like, wow, like John Romita Jr., like that guy baffles me. I think he's amazing because I've tried to do his style and I can't get anywhere near it. So, it's amazing.
That image that you showed, David, it just looks like it ran through a really bad printer. I mean, it looks like a really bad print job.
Well, I think that might be the resolution of the picture.
Oh, but he has like thick lines, which is kind of what it looks like the image got filled in. That's what I mean by feathery.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I should probably just be kinder. I mean, it's good stuff. I don't think it's particularly realistic. I think he's still pretty exaggerated. Pretty stylized. This one looks nice. What is this from? Dragon Chang. Yeah, I mean, maybe also he's just being reproduced poorly because the original art looks better.
Dragon Chain. You mean Dragon's Claws? That's
I don't know. I typed his name in and it was an original piece of art. That's what it was written at the top. I think it says Dragon Change. I don't know. I'm not like, he's not someone I know a lot about. But I think for the realism to work, it has to be very alive. Like Stan Drake, who I don't think they talk about at all really in Volume 1, but his art is like very realistic, but also like he's a great cartoonist. He did he took over Blondie. Like he drew Blondie all throughout the 80s and 70s and 80s, I think. So he could cartoon, and then when he was a photorealist, his stuff is super expressive. So yeah, I think that's what
King Conan is realistic, but like it's colored.
Which one? Conan?
King Conan. Conan, yeah.
King Conan.
Yeah.
By Tim Truman.
Yeah. Conan.
Really realistic.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with him as a painter, Tim Truman. I do like his paintings better. Yeah, and he looks like a proto. Actually, yeah, that stuff looks pretty good. That looks. He's like a precursor to Tim Bradstreet, right? The other photorealistic Tim. Yeah, and it has that Mike Grell look too, right? Would you put them in the same category? Truman and Grell?
Yeah. Yeah, coming from that mid-60s DC tradition, which itself came out of like the mid-50s EC tradition,
Well, and they all coming from Neil Adams, and Neil Adams is coming from Stan Drake.
Yeah.
So it does go back to like the guys that we're talking about. Like I've actually read, I just read somewhere recently, someone I saw it on Instagram. Someone was posting like an old interview they had read, and they were talking about how they like following the trail of artists back. And they said, oh, the first time that they saw Stan Drake drawing, they said, oh, wow, here's some Neil Adams stuff that I've never seen before. And then they realized that this is a different artist and that he was working before Neil Adams. And then you look at it and you're like, oh, holy crap. Okay, well, Neil Adams just took what this guy was doing, and eventually turned it towards superheroes and kind of introduced those concepts back into superheroes. And then you get, like Mike Grell is obviously coming out of that.
Yeah.
Big time Neil Adams influence.
That I thought that was really fascinating when I read this in this book, to read all that history. I was fascinated by it. To read the lineage and the genealogy of all this.
Just a few. Glamour-Puss?
The what?
Were you reading this when it was being released as Glamour-Puss?
No, I mean in the Strange Death of Alex Raymond, where he goes through the history of Neil Adams and Kirby and how they all interrelate together. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah, the book started out when he was doing Glamour-Puss, which I don't know if you've read or not, but
yeah, I read that. Oh, of course, I read that. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I mean, so I liked it all better back then. If the project would have continued being the history of how all these artists interrelate, I think that would be an awesome comic. As it starts to get obsessive about the car crash, it's still cool. It was interesting. I got obviously wrapped up enough in it that I wanted to work on it, but I do think that it kind of sucks that historical project got sidetracked by this other thing. Because it's like that can get lost really easy, and it was good to have someone recovering that, because these are a bunch of artists that I didn't know about until Glamour-Puss. Okay. Now I'm looking at it like partially because the reproductions are so crap, right? Like I've seen Alex Raymond's art before and I go, this guy sucks, because I was looking at bad reproductions. So like you look at, even if you buy the IDW books, they're just working with such bad source material because that's all that's left. But if you go look at the original art, it's like, holy cow, this is a totally different guy. So I dismissed all of that type of stuff as crap because I'd only seen bad reproductions. And then what Dave did by like going and learning enough about the style to be able to pull back out what was missing was like, that was monumental for me. I don't know how many other people, but that's a cool book. It's unfortunate that never got finished in that form.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems almost impossible that it's going to get finished in the way it was originally envisioned, but we certainly hope for the best. It's going to.
Well, we'll get a finished version. It won't be Dave's, but mine is pretty much done.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, I have Volume 2 was finished. Volume 2 has been finished for a few years now. So that's probably the same size or a little bit longer than Volume 1. And then I have the 21 pages of Volume 3 that Dave had done in those photocopied versions that I showed you. So there's 21 pages of that. And there's another 30 some odd pages of me like creating like my ending to it. It's he had like 2 or 3 more volumes planned, so it would have been another 400 to 600 pages.
Wow.
But I'm not confident I don't think that will ever see the light of day, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get something for the people like you who have read it and are interested in it, that you can at least see everything that has been done, and then that we could provide an ending to it, that it's not Dave's ending, but I feel like when you're reading it, you don't just go like, You know, it ended. I tried to give it something that feels like an ending to the book that you're reading. It feels
Yeah.
like a conclusion of some sorts.
Yeah.
And me and Sean have been working on that, so I'm pretty happy with what we're going to do there. And you know, hopefully we'll get it out. I'm treating the book as like a lost project thing. Like the Barry Windsor Smith had the storyteller stuff at Fantagraphics that they never got finished, but they collected them, acknowledging that like here's all the unfinished material, and like this is a worthy project. It's beautiful. People should own how much there is, and that's how I feel about this. So that's what we're trying to do within like 6 months time, hopefully.
Oh, wow. Sooner than I thought it would be. Well, that's great. Yeah. Well, sometimes, yeah, that's the best you can do is hope for, the best possible compromise under the circumstances.
Yeah, and I think if it was in Dave's hands, he'd just let it sit on the shelf, you know. So luckily with his feelings about if you've worked on it, you own it. I have the freedom, you know, like he can't.
Yeah.
You know, he's given me permission, so
yeah,
we can get it out there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, these are things that that's not likely to be extraordinarily popular. So, yeah.
But we are trying to make sure that it's not just kickstarted.
Right.
We're trying to make sure that we go through Diamond, and we're trying to make sure that we get it into stores, bookstores, you know, trying to figure out how to get into like Barnes and Noble and stuff. Because I think that the style, the realistic style, and the book itself deserves to be picked up by people who don't already know about it. Like the thing I think is most important is that 5 years from now, there's a copy on a shelf somewhere, and some kid comes across it and like does what I do, like, wow, that spine looks good. Like this is big and thick and hardcover. Someone must have thought this was important, and pulls it up and looks at it and goes, wow, this is so beautiful. And then gets obsessed and becomes the next photorealist guy. If it just gets kickstarted, it's only going to go to all of you who already know about it, and you'll treasure it, and you'll never like turn it. You'll never like sell it as a used book, and it will never end up in a store. So that's the other goal.
Yeah.
Hopefully Diamond plays nice with us.
Yeah. Well, I just appreciate it for the lush aesthetic pleasure of viewing well drawn artwork. Yeah. And yeah, I thought I mean, yeah, I can see what you mean by he goes a little bit into very esoteric situations with the whole comic art metaphysics, ideology. But you don't have to pay attention to that if you don't want to. It's there, but yeah.
But you found it readable nonetheless.
Yeah, and it's readable. It's followable.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So does anybody have any other questions?
What do you all normally do in these things?
Yeah, we had Peter Bagg last week.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, he was here, and we talked about his Margaret Sanger biography. Yeah, we had a lot to talk about there.
Coat hangers, a lot of coat hangers.
Yeah. We probably sold a couple of books for him.
Good.
Yeah, we just select a book that I usually choose, and I was interested in reading this one, and then we'll see if anybody likes it or dislikes it.
So the other people in the group didn't know about this prior to you saying, "Hey, let's read this."
Well, no, I didn't announce that you were going to be here. No.
No, I'm saying the book they hadn't They weren't aware of the project prior to.
No, they were not. No.
Then I'm really curious what people thought when they're like, here's this thing, read it. And they're like, because that's something that Dave talks about a lot, is like, well, only Dave Sim fans who have been following him forever are going to be able to appreciate this book. So it'd be interesting to know, what people who were given the book blind thought about it. That would be very helpful.
Well, it's probably pleasing artwork was the thing. I was reminiscing, your Flash Gordons or your Buck Rogers. I don't think there was any mention of Buck Rogers in it, was there? It was just Flash Gordon. Just the introduction to the old style realistic artwork, which sort of, peeked out of your memory from some time ago. I know, was it, say, story-wise, when you have this very, very rich sort of realistic artwork, what's it trying to say there, say, compared to different styles? Is it just a pose? You got all these, pretty good lookers posing in a sense.
Well, I think that's how he started with it, like pretty self-admittedly. He just wanted to draw pretty girls, and then he got down this
with channel bugs.
Yeah. And then it definitely gets gloomier as it goes. But I think it has to be in that style because it's talking about people. I think the reason for being in that style is because it's talking about the history of the style.
I was just thinking you could just about do a cover of Don McLean's Vincent for Alex Raymond and do some pretty screwball lyrics about a guy who's envious of another guy.
There is a bit of that, like ability envy and everything, yeah. And I think me and Dave are carrying that on purposefully, and competitively. Like, he makes a big deal about how small the guys could get their lines. So when I was drawing the pages, it's like, all right, I'm gonna go 3 times as small. You'll see. And I think that's good. That pushes it forward. Not that those guys could all kick my ass still in terms of draftsmanship, but that envy factor is a big part of it for sure. Especially as it goes forward, Alex Raymond being used to being on the top of the heap, and then Stan Drake coming along and kicking his ass all over the place.
I think a great story would be Donald Trump goes pirate and floats around America.
I'm not going to draw that one.
doing a complete Captain Nemo on the nation that failed him.
Yeah, my job in academia would be a threat if I got anywhere near.
That's what pissed me off with Chris when I said I want to be on a pirate ship with Donald Trump as a commander, and Chris said, "Oh, no way, Donald Trump could never measure up to me as a pirate captain." I thought, "Oh God, you got to be ridiculous. Who could measure up to Donald Trump as a pirate captain?"
I don't know who'd want to read that or even to see that as a movie.
I will, though, if Donald Trump's listening, I will paint your presidential portrait.
Ah, there you go.
Someone's got to be the person to do it. I will happily be that person.
That'll get your name out there.
Yeah, I'll gold leaf it too.
Yeah. Oh, I think I know where I was going with that question. Does it have a place? I think the argument is that if it's too realistic, if it's too photorealistic, that it somehow is it's dead. It's not as engaging. It's not as page turning. It's just kind of an image, and it doesn't flow. It doesn't move a story along like a river. It's just you're too busy admiring the line work
Mhm.
and instead of having a reading experience. I think that's
Mm.
kind of that. Well, I'm not saying that's my argument. I'm saying that is the traditional argument against having too photorealistic a comic.
Yeah, that's pretty like Scott McCloud would say that,
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I agree.
Hmm.
There's a reason I've never read a comic that's like done with photographs that I've liked really.
Hmm.
Except maybe there's an issue of Promethea where they use photographs, but even that was it does it because you have to have them posed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and most of the stuff, yeah, looks too posed, but yeah, I think it can be done. Um, but yeah, it does. Like you can get caught up in the cross hatching. Whereas Chris Ware, yeah, he's purposely he talks about that he's working like a typographer. So it's all reading. I get it. I've had that argument with myself many times, but I think like it's nice to hear that you feel like the work's alive because that's something I was trying hard to do, and I think that Dave does well, and that those old guys, Raymond and Drake and all those guys, there's enough cartooning in it that it flows.
Yeah. Well, I sure do think that that's a lot of what's going on here because when you do look at these panels, you do see, I mean, a lot of sparse like backgrounds. Like a lot of times it's just white figures in a white void.
Mm-hmm.
But even here, it's just enough detail that you need to get across the idea. Or here over here at the television studio, uh,
Yeah,
good use of the white space, and just enough brush strokes to suggest the detail of the outlines and the hair, so you get the
Yeah.
idea of what these shapes are.
yeah, and it's a little weird in the project because Dave consistently insisted on that we were trying to draw like Al Williamson,
Uh-huh.
which is like he did carry on the tradition from Raymond, but all of those guys are, in my mind, they're not super realistic. Like I look at those Raymond panels you just had up, or this Neil Adams stuff, the Ben Casey stuff that's on screen. I don't think any of it's photorealistic. Like I wouldn't call it that. So I think it's funny. I understand that it led to the tradition of more photorealistic people, but even Al Williamson is very loose. So I tried to head more in that direction in volume 2 because I felt like Dave, I was pushing the overly detailed, overly crosshatchy stuff in volume 1 because that's what Dave did, and then I looked a lot more at Al Williamson, so I tried to loosen up a little bit for volume 2, and then he seemed to complain that the stuff looked less like Al Williamson, and I was like, he's not as detailed as you're getting. So I don't know. I mean, it is. I don't think they're photorealistic. I think those guys are definitely cartooning quite a bit. I mean, they feel very alive and like real people, but none of it looks to me. Photorealism actually looks flat, like purposely flat, because you're trying to mimic. Like Gerhard's a better photorealist than me or Dave.
I'll put up some Al Williamson here. We've got
like that the comics reporter one, that one down there with the woman's face.
Let's see.
That what she's got like the
Secret Agent Corrigan was.
Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be drawing like. Or the one right above that, the square one where she's saying cash in my chips. Yeah, that's like prime what we're supposed to be drawing like. But I still, it's more detailed than Raymond, but I still think it is still very abstract and loose.
Yeah. He also drew the Star Wars comic strip. After Star Wars came out, there was a comic strip.
Yeah, really good work there. I studied that very extensively in preparation for Volume 2. And I got the IDW. He did a Star Wars comic, and they have the artist edition, which is like printed at size. And I didn't see a bunch of tiny lines and a bunch of,
Yeah, there was a Star Wars strip in the newspapers.
Yeah,
Al Williamson.
Wouldn't it be nice if newspapers still look like that?
Yeah.
Curse of peanuts, right?
How much has the lithographic process changed with illustrations? Years ago they were using aluminium plates.
I have no idea.
Blanket machines, yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're still printing the book on an offset litho press. That's.
Oh, right, yeah, okay,
yeah. We can get pretty close with digital, but to get all the tiniest lines, you do have to use offset litho. But I mean, I don't know. We just got quotes for like a 300-something page book, hardcover, saddle stitch binding so it lays flat, and it was like $30 a book or something. So I don't think that's not terribly prohibitive. That means it's a $50-$60 book for a 300-page hardcover. Like that's seems reasonable to me. I had one in high school in the 90s, our graphic arts class. I took it to learn Photoshop. He was still teaching us offset litho. So yeah, we go in the dark room and develop the plates and all that stuff. I loved it. It was cool. I printed a comic on an A.B. Dick offset litho. Yeah, it was cool. I even did a 4-color print in that class. It was awesome. There's a smell of the ink.
Yeah. Well, they used to use compositors before the computers came out. That was a very, very labor-intense process.
Well, and we did like photo negatives and cut them and put them on this yellow piece of paper and tape it up, and then you put it in the machine and expose the plate and go wipe it all off. And yeah, I love that. I mean, it's good. Elena's going, yep. I mean, it was cool, man. Like I printed my own comic. Like I drew whole thing, made the plates and printed and stapled it, and that was like the coolest high school project ever. Now, you just print it off a machine.
I know David Mazzucchelli. David Mazzucchelli has a background in lithography.
That makes sense. Like Asteros Polyp very much looks like process color.
Yeah. No, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he does. He's the tippy top.
Yeah, he's very underrated. Yeah.
I don't know how. He's the top of the mountain in my mind.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Well, he went from he of course he was big and popular because of Daredevil. And then he went from Daredevil to doing the more independent material. And he just kind of fell off the map, even though it's every bit as good.
Yeah, well, I think Asteros Polyp got at least good critical acclaim.
Yeah,
I don't know how much money he made off of it, but
it's a shame.
That's a top of the heap book in my mind.
Yeah, but you look at those Daredevil pieces. Yeah, I mean, talk about physical bodily impact in those fight scenes, and Daredevil. You just feel every blow, every footstep just is there, I mean, and the anatomy is impeccable.
Yeah, he's good. He's another guy where I tried to mimic what he did on Year One. It's.
But it's like the bodies actually move like human bodies, like a head being thrown back from being punched, the neck angle is correct,
Yeah,
and it makes a difference.
It does, and that's stuff that if I had to do it out of my head, I wouldn't be very good at. So more power to the guys that can pull that off.
Yeah.
That's that's cartooning, like Metalia was talking about. Yeah, I'm not as good at that as I'm an illustrator more than a cartoonist.
Yeah, I want to show this one. I mean, just it's incredible because it's so meticulously done, and yet there's a feeling of spontaneity in these panels.
Yeah, and those are Dave. Like Dave's more of a cartoonist. He's less of an illustrator. Dave's a far better designer and cartoonist than me. I think in terms of like illustration, like the realism, I think I can take him on that a little bit, but I lose like he's just because he's coming from Cerebus and doing cartooning, he has way more life in his drawings than I do, for sure.
Yeah.
But he stylizes more because of it as well, which
Yeah.
is fine. It's an interesting contrast between the two of us.
Yeah, and it's just the clothes, the fabric that feels like fabric. It just looks like, the texture of it. You could feel it on your skin almost.
Yeah. And so I was trying to mimic like that type of stuff at first. But the more I looked at Al Williamson, the more I actually changed what I was doing. I was trying to draw like Dave at first, and then I started trying to draw. I was trying to draw like Dave, trying to draw like Al Williamson. And then when I started to try and draw like Al Williamson, then he didn't like it anymore.
Okay. Yeah. Just enough lines to get the idea across, and still have it open and airy and spontaneous.
Well, the other thing is that I learned, and I don't, it's very hard to explain, but I learned by studying these guys.
Okay.
People who do photorealism now are like, they're like taking a pen, and the Japanese make this mistake a lot too. They're like drawing. So they'll get this photorealism, but it'll look stiff because they're going in, and like if they were going to have an area of black, they would like outline it and color it in or something. If you look at Dave's work and you look at those old cartoon guys, they were painting, they were using the brush, and it's like calligraphy. They're making images out of calligraphy. So they have a very basic set of shapes that they repeat, and they construct the image out of those very simple set of shapes. Whereas a lot of people who do photorealism now are trying to render every detail very accurately, and like every fold getting it perfect, and they're going too slow. So Dave is very good at that idea of constructing an image out of a very basic vocabulary, and I think that adds the freshness to it. That was something I was making the mistake of in the early art with my contributions. I was drawing too much, and I was not painting like a calligrapher.
Okay.
But it's hard to point out. Like you have to have got to the other side of it to even see it, really. Like you have to have seen your own error, and then you go, oh, okay, I get it. And then you'll see it in everyone else. Oh, that guy's drawing too much. Be a calligrapher. Like Mike Grell, like I think he's drawing. That maybe that's what I was complaining, or not Mike Grell, but the other guy, Tim Truman. He's drawing too much.
Page 52, Flash Gordon.
Flash Gordon. Say that again. Age 52.
Page 52.
Page 52.
Steady reference is page at the moment. It goes before age.
I'll pull it up. Let me do I'll pull it right there. This one?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, with Princess Aura.
Azura, yeah.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
Can pull that down a bit so he gets all of it. Yeah, see. Yeah, that's what makes me say, yeah, Raymond probably was the top of the heap because, yeah, I mean, it's not just the rendering, but it's the artistry.
Yeah, he was good. But you know, honestly, I prefer the Rip Kirby stuff even more because there's less rendering and there's more of that simplicity that you're talking about and the calligraphy that I'm talking about. Like he reduces things much more. This is very
Yeah.
this is very old school illustration.
Yeah, very expressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All of that. Oh yeah, Hal Foster.
Yeah, and so Hal Foster draws more. It's more like carefully drawn.
All right, so we've got Prince Valiant here, have we?
Yeah. See, this is what I was talking about. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's the Kirby was from Modified Caniff, stylized realism and photorealism, which is a lot of Marvel DC, like Gil Kane and probably like Carmine Infantino, people like that.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of old DC people like Joe Orlando were coming out of that same tradition. And today, here's what we're talking about. This is like, we're getting into like Rob Liefeld and Todd McFarlane.
That's a Mike Turner Witchblade drawing right there. Yeah, see, those guys draw too much. Yeah. They draw too much. But like Mike Oeming, who's there, the power stuff in the back, I don't know why Dave has that with the image guys. That's different. That's a totally that's calligraphy still.
Yeah.
But like Art Adams, he draws. No calligraphy there at all. He draws everything. It's like
yeah, that really is coming out of like that whole like 70s school of like John Byrne and
who came out of Kirby and Adams and all of that. I don't think it's as simple as what Dave has here, but whatever. It's not my book. the influences are more, like Art Adams was probably looking at Moebius too, with all of that cross hatching like that. They're looking at the European guys who were looking at, I mean, and they're looking at old etchings. He's probably looking at Gustave Doré,
Yeah, even Bill Sienkiewicz came out of that Neil Adams style, and
totally.
He went on from there. He didn't stay there, of course.
But again, that goes back to Stan Drake, and they knew him. They were sharing the studios together, and then Sergio Topi, the Italian illustrator. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but that's a guy that goes kind of unspoken in a lot of those. Will Simonson, Bill Sienkiewicz, they all looking at Sergio Topi because everybody wishes they could draw like that guy.
Let's go back to page 47.
Page 47. Okay, coming up. Oh, all right. Go to you. Share. There we go.
Okay, we've got Flash Gordon bit bare chested at that point. Don't know why he's bare chested. So it looks like his pecs are bigger than his head.
He does have a heroic 9 head tall proportion.
That's.
Oh shit! I don't
know what the laser slapped to his side is supposed to represent, but
yeah, he has a laser gun and a sword.
I'll show you. I just mimic that one for my ending.
So he says the stylized realism school. Yeah, Carmine Infantino definitely goes there. But yeah, Joe Shuster and Al Williamson Frank Frazetta.
Yeah, so I'll share the screen.
Okay.
That's
Yeah, go
funny
ahead.
because I was just working on that, flipping that pose. So taking that same pose and then putting myself and my partner in it. Trying to be funny. Like, because the book is all about referencing back to those old things. So, yeah, that's funny that you pointed that one out. I was just working with that. I like that pose, bare-chested and all. I should have done it bare-chested.
Yeah.
No, there's a bare-chested fly in the modern era anymore. It's like remember the old ad for the what was it, the Mr. Atlas? You had the skinny guy getting beaten up and
Hero of the beach. Yeah, Charles Atlas. Maybe we can do that next time. Yeah. Yeah, I just appreciate good drawing, whatever form it comes in.
Yeah, any style, as long as it's good example of that style.
So, what would be a postmodernist cartoon? You know, your Flash Gordon was, you know, the height of the modernist, I suppose. So, what came after? What wrecks the modernist tradition?
Peanuts, according to Dave.
All right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Peanuts. So yeah, that was a different league of comic, wasn't it? So I'm just trying to think now. Of course, they had, what was it? The old Addams Family comic that was from the 30s, and of course that wasn't
Charles Addams.
That wasn't quite as realistic as the other stuff, but it was still a bit more realistic than Peanuts.
Yeah, Charles Addams.
Yeah, I would say Dave's argument is that Peanuts came along and that they started, because the art was simpler, they start like the comics page, you know, they used to have bigger images and then they just kept shrinking down how big the strips were, and it eventually forced out the realists, because it's like, why are you going to put all of that work into these big beautiful illustrations and they're going to print like that big garbage reproduction? So everyone had to modify.
Yeah, I think he was explaining that the Peanuts was just a few circles. Yeah. You do a circle and you fill it in, another little circle for this, and
yeah, who's really doing that right now? If you open a newspaper, if there aren't any newspapers anymore, but who's doing a daily with that style anymore?
Peanuts or the realism?
Yeah. Well, the only one close, and it's not exact, but Bill Griffith.
Yeah.
With Zippy.
Is he still going?
I think Zippy's still going, yeah.
On the daily? Wow, okay.
I think Zippy's still a daily, yeah. But when he does the detailed rendering of a diner, you know, it's there. He'll do every line of that diner, or the statues that he does. You know,
I mean, you got to be nuts to do it and do it on the daily. Like, all those guys are out of their minds. Totally out of their minds.
That's like, I think the only one I can think of. Yeah, I mean, he just sits down and he'll do every line of it, and so yeah,
it's impressive.
We did Invisible Ink just a month ago.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. That's a Zippy one?
Oh, Bill Griffith did a book called Invisible Ink, and that was it was a account of his mother, who had a liaison with Lawrence Lerier, the cartoonist.
Oh, I have seen that. Yeah. I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we did that as one of our selections just about a month and a half ago.
I haven't read that one yet. Is it good?
It's an interesting book because it does go over a lot of the history of what was happening in the cartooning universe at that time.
It looks good.
And
It's kind of
the
got like an
history
R.
is nice.
Crumb vibe in the backgrounds. I'll have to look that one up.
And it's surprisingly emotional too, because you gets into the story of what was happening with his mother and also his parents, both of them, and yeah, I think he pulled it off very well, actually.
Yeah, this looks good. Yeah, he's nuts for doing this if he's doing this on the regular. That's not the kind of thing I would commit to doing 7 days a week. Still more cartooning, though. He's definitely a cartoonist. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, you mentioned Gerhard. I know I want to do the new one that he's been doing. I know that's going to be one of our selections coming up. I forgot the title of it.
The thing he's doing with Grant Morrison.
That's the one, yeah.
Is it getting released? I thought that was like caught up in legal BS with heavy metal.
I don't know, but
yeah, I think it's done though. Like if you get the individual heavy metal issues, I think you can piece it together out of them. I don't know if it's going to be its own book though.
Yeah, I've got it from those heavy metal issues, but
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gerhard's more of a photorealist in my mind.
Yeah, Gerhard is great.
Yeah.
A bit weird. The only time I ever really followed this sort of stuff strongly was there was a newspaper put out in Melbourne called the Sunday Observer, and it simply came out on Sunday. And this was probably the only time I was really captured by this sort of comic. And I don't know why. Was it the Sunday? Because there's nothing else to do on Sunday back in those days. And it created a few, you had a sort of an Australian superhero, which had the Ned Kelly hat on and a skin-tight red uniform. I actually enjoyed this. And there was another one which was a sort of was it, the King Solomon's Mine sort of scenario, but a bit of a variation on that. The artwork was interesting, was fairly good. And I was really annoyed because this Sunday newspaper, they said cost too much, so bang, it went. And suddenly I had all these cartoon stories, which I'd been avidly following every week, just left hanging in the air. I'll have to research it again and see if I can find something out about
it. Yeah. Back in the day, yeah, if it's something like that happened, you were out of luck. You couldn't do anything. Today, everything's
little
online.
Scenes where the hero happens upon a mother and his daughter, a mother and her daughter in the middle of Africa, bathing in a pool, and that was when I was about 10 years old, that was pretty erotic stuff,
Yeah.
So was that Alan Quartermain?
Well, it was a variation of that sort of African theme, yeah.
How dare they?
It's a pity I just thought of it then, because the artwork was very interesting. This wasn't crap artwork. It was something not the greatest ever, but it was something a bit up there. And it seemed to be just this Sunday paper decided to go all out on the expense, which is what did it in. After a while, they just couldn't keep up because they're trying to up their quality in every regard.
Yeah, and that's kind of the story of the Peanuts too. Is it's just cheaper to reproduce art like that, so eventually the artistry gets sucked out And like Dave talks about, they never reproduced it well. You know, like those panels you were looking at about the TV, the girl doing the ballet in the TV studio. You know, his art compared to the reproductions. That's what I was saying. When I looked at those guys, I never thought they were that good because all I ever saw was the crap reproductions. So they were always fighting against that, which is unfortunate. And it's all lost now, or it's like in university archives that we were paying like $40 to get scans of 20 strips or something like that. You know, they'll charge you a boatload to access.
All right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like if you gave it to someone like Sean Robinson and he went and, you know, did his pre-press on it, you could reprint those books like beautifully accurate, but you're just cut off from access, or it's prohibitively expensive to get the high quality scans. And a lot of them are just lost, you know, the art got chopped up, sold, thrown away, who knows what. Anyways, though, I gotta go. I'm getting text messages from my partner.
Yeah.
She's like, "Hey, where are you at?" So thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks for reading the book. That's the best thing ever. I hope you all enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was invigorating, put it that way.
Good.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us, Carson.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Y'all have a good evening.
Okay.
You
Thanks.
too.
Have a good evening. Bye. All right, everyone. Yeah. I thought this was a good selection. I wanted to read it, and I'm glad you all liked it.
So we'll resurrect the Flash Gordon type hero with the giant pecs and all that, will we? You know, it's
and it is an interesting story, given who Alex Raymond was and how he ended up dying. Yeah, and in the car
I think
accident.
I've still got the Flash Gordon annuals tucked away somewhere.
Yeah.
Not too sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and we all hope that he finishes the book so we can read it.
So I don't know why Flash Gordon figured so strongly. There was a strength there a bit beyond Buck Rogers, I thought. They did do a movie-ized version of Buck Rogers long after they did the Flash Gordon, didn't they? The Flash Gordon must have taken off rather strongly in the 30s. So they did the movie-ized weekly serial there, and the Flash Gordon came after World War II. The Buck Rogers came after World War II. I think the thing with Flash, though, he was just such an attractive figure. That was his, you know, he was sort of Hitler's Aryan Superman sort of thing, you know. Oh, well, we'll be getting off to another meeting soon.
All right. Well, now I can guarantee next week will be the Sandman, but it's a short. We're only doing the first issue, so it's a short read.
Oh, okay. Yeah, toss us the download for it, and I'll check it out.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, well, I'll catch you all later then. See you later, Natalia. See you, Dave.
See you later, Stephen.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.